The dying princess. The great palace of the alien empire stood silent. Normally it was full of music, guards, and voices, but now the air was heavy. Inside the royal chamber, the alien princess lay on a shining crystal bed, her skin pale and her eyes closed. She was the hope of her people, the light of the empire. But her life was slipping away. Alien healers stood around her, their hands glowing with strange energy tools. Machines hummed and lights flickered, yet nothing worked. Her breathing was weak, her chest rising only a little with every painful moment. The royal family stood nearby, their faces filled with fear and sorrow. The alien emperor, her father, held his hands behind his back, but his body shook. His eyes burned with anger at the healers. "You promised me she would survive," he said in a deep voice. But the healers bowed their heads and whispered, "We tried every method, nothing can bring her back." The alien queen, her mother, stood with tears running down her silver cheeks. She touched her daughter's hand gently, her lips trembling. "Our daughter cannot leave us, she is too young, too full of light," she whispered. The room was filled with silence, a silence heavier than death itself. Near the wall, almost forgotten, stood a human. He was not a prince, not a soldier of great power, just a simple man who had been serving in the palace. The aliens rarely noticed him. They treated him as less important, but he had been ordered to stay and bring small things, like water or cloth. The human looked at the princess with sad eyes. He had seen humans fight against disease, struggle in pain, but never had he seen such beauty fade so quickly. He wanted to step closer, but he knew the aliens would not allow it. To them he was only a tool, a servant, not someone worthy to stand by royalty. One healer stepped back and said, "We must prepare for the end. Her body is shutting down." The emperor roared in anger and smashed a chair with his hand. The queen cried louder, while the royal siblings whispered in despair. No one knew what else to do. The human felt his heart ache. He could not just watch. His hands shook as he carried a small bowl of water. As he reached the princess's side, the queen stepped away, lost in grief. The human bent to place the water near the bed. His fingers brushed against the princess's hand by mistake. The touch was soft, light, like nothing at all. But in that moment, something strange happened. Her hand twitched. A small spark of color returned to her pale skin. The human gasped, pulling his hand back. The healers looked up at once. Their eyes wide, the royal family turned, watching in shock. The princess's breathing grew a little stronger. Her lips moved as if trying to form words. The queen fell to her knees beside the bed. "What is this?" she cried. The emperor stepped forward, his face filled with disbelief. The healers rushed to scan the machines, but their tools gave no answers. All they could see was that the princess's body was responding. The human shook his head, his voice trembling. "I didn't do anything. It was an accident." But the truth stood before them. Her life was fading a moment ago. And now, after his touch, it was returning. The royal family stared at him as if he was no longer just a servant, but something far greater. The princess's eyes fluttered for a moment. Her lips whispered a sound. It was soft, broken, but it was life. The queen grabbed the human's arm, her voice desperate. "Do it again. Touch her again." The human froze, unsure what to do, but her grip tightened, pulling his hand closer. He placed his hand on the princess's skin once more. This time, the change was clearer. Her skin warmed under his touch. Her breathing steadied more. The healers gasped. One even dropped his tool to the floor. The emperor's voice thundered through the chamber. "What magic is this? How can a human do what our science cannot?" No one had the answer, not even the human himself. He looked down at the princess, fear and wonder mixing in his heart. He had never imagined his touch could carry such power. The royal siblings whispered in awe. The human saved her. The human healed her. But others stepped back, whispering with fear. What if he is dangerous? What if humans hold a secret against us? The chamber filled with both hope and fear. Everyone's eyes locked on the human, the only one who could change the fate of the dying princess. The silence was broken by the sound of the princess's weak but steady breath. The emperor clenched his fists. The queen cried again, but with hope instead of despair. The human stood frozen, realizing that in one small accidental touch, he had changed the destiny of an empire. The shock in the hall. The great chamber was filled with whispers. Every alien noble, every guard, every healer who stood in that room could not believe what they had just seen. The alien princess had been slipping into death, yet the moment a human touched her, her body had begun to heal. It was not science. It was not alien medicine. It was something no one could explain. The queen's voice trembled. Her hands clutched the princess's arm. "She is warmer, can you not see? She is breathing better," she cried, her eyes wide with hope. The healers rushed forward, their scanners glowing and humming. They expected their machines to tell them the secret, but the readings made no sense. "The cells are regenerating," one whispered, "but the energy source is unknown." The Emperor's deep voice cut through the air like thunder. "Explain this at once," he demanded, his golden eyes locked on the human. The human froze, his heart beating fast. He felt the weight of every gaze upon him. He wanted to speak, but no words came. For he himself did not understand, the nobles whispered in fear. Some stepped back as if the human carried a deadly curse. Others leaned closer, their voices hushed with awe. "What power do humans hold?" one muttered. "How can a race so simple do what our healers cannot?" The hall was no longer just a place of sorrow. It had turned into a place of suspicion, of questions, of rising tension. The princess moved again, her eyelids opening slightly. Her lips parted and a soft sound escaped. It was not a clear word, yet it carried life. It carried the proof that she was not gone. The queen wept harder. But now her tears fell with joy instead of despair. The Emperor's gaze hardened, his voice heavy with both fear and command. "You human, step forward," he ordered. The human obeyed, his step slow, his head lowered. He dared not look directly into the Emperor's eyes. He could feel the entire Empire's weight pressing against his shoulders. "You will tell me how you did this," the Emperor growled. The human shook his head, his voice unsteady. "I do not know. It was an accident. I was only bringing water. I touched her by mistake." His words made the nobles whisper louder, their voices sharp. "Lies," shouted one noble. "No touch can restore life." "Perhaps it is hidden human magic," said another. "They always hide secrets." "Or perhaps he carries poison and we only see a trick," another spat. The chamber filled with anger and fear, the sound rising higher and higher. The Emperor raised his hand and the noise fell into silence. His eyes never left the human, sharp like a blade. "If this is true," he said slowly, "then only you can keep her alive." The queen gasped at his words, for it was both a command and a sentence. The human's breath caught. He did not want this power. He did not ask for it. Yet here he stood in the center of a storm. The princess's weak fingers twitched again. As if reaching for him, the queen saw it and whispered, "She responds only to him." The healers looked at their failed machines, their pride broken. The nobles exchanged uneasy glances, their empire's greatest knowledge now questioned. The human felt the eyes of an entire galaxy burning into his soul. He wished only to fade away, but fate had placed him at the center. The Emperor leaned closer, his voice low but filled with power. "You will not leave her side, not until we know what you are." The words struck like chains around the human's body. He could not argue, for the Emperor's will was law. The human nodded slowly, his voice soft. "I will stay." He did not know why he agreed, only that his heart ached for the dying princess. Something inside him whispered that his presence truly mattered. And though fear filled him, he could not walk away, around them. The nobles whispered again, their words like snakes in the dark. "Humans are dangerous. Humans should be controlled. Perhaps we need them more than we knew." The chamber filled with questions that no one could answer. But one truth echoed through every heart. The human had done the impossible. As the night deepened, guards were placed at every corner. The human sat near the princess's side, her hand resting in his once more. Her breathing grew steadier with each passing moment. The queen sat close too, watching him with both gratitude and fear. The Emperor stood at the window, his eyes on the stars, his thoughts heavy with doubt, with suspicion, with destiny. "Why must it be a human?" he whispered to himself. No one answered, for the stars themselves remained silent. And so the Hall of Sorrow became a hall of shock, a hall where an empire's pride was shaken, where hope was reborn, and at its center was a simple human, whose accidental touch had changed everything. The Emperor's demand, the chamber was no longer silent. It was filled with tension that pressed against every wall. The alien princess rested on her crystal bed, her breathing stronger now, though still weak. Her family stood around her, torn between relief and disbelief, but their eyes kept drifting back to the one figure who should not have mattered, the human, The human sat stiff, his hand still close to the princess's. Every time he moved away, her body grew weaker, her breath shallow, and every time his skin touched hers, warmth returned. Life flowed back. The healers whispered among themselves, baffled. Their machines had no answers. Their knowledge failed them. The Emperor stepped forward, his tall form casting a shadow across the chamber. He had ruled empires, crushed rebellions, faced wars with unshakable will. Yet now he faced something that made his voice shake with hidden rage. A single human had undone the wisdom of generations. He stopped in front of the human, his golden eyes sharp like fire. "Rise," the Emperor commanded, his voice echoing like thunder. The human stood, his head lowered, his heart beating fast. The Emperor's words came slow, heavy, each one carrying the weight of command. "You will tell me how this happened. You will explain this power." The human shook his head, his throat dry, his voice weak. "I do not know. I touched her by accident. I did nothing more." The nobles scoffed, their voices like blades. "Lies. No man heals with a touch," one hissed. "He hides something. All humans are dangerous," another said. Their whispers grew louder, filling the chamber with distrust. The queen raised her voice, sharp with desperation. "Silence, can you not see our daughter lives because of him?" Her words cut through the noise, but suspicion still burned in their eyes. The Emperor turned his gaze back to the human, his face unreadable, caught between anger, hope, and fear. "You stand in my palace, you touch my bloodline, and you dare claim ignorance," he growled. The human bowed his head lower. "I swear I know nothing of this. I am no healer, no sorcerer. I am only a servant." But the Emperor's suspicion did not fade. He leaned closer, his voice low and dangerous. "If you lie, human, if you bring harm, I will see your world burn." The human swallowed hard, his hands trembling. He wanted to run, to hide, but the princess's faint grip on his finger stopped him. Her eyes fluttered open again. Weak but alive, her lips moved, a whisper escaped. "Stay." The queen gasped at the word, clutching her daughter's hand tighter. The Emperor froze, his golden eyes softening for the first time. He looked at the human, then back at his daughter. "Stay," she whispered again, her voice thin but filled with need. The chamber fell silent, the sound of her word echoing like a command. The Emperor straightened, his voice heavy with decision. "Then you will not leave her side, not until she is healed." The human's heart sank, for his fate was sealed by royal decree. He was no longer a servant free to walk away. He was a prisoner bound by the will of an empire. The nobles protested, their voices sharp. "This is madness. To place trust in a human. He is a danger, a curse." But the queen silenced them with a single cry. "Would you rather let her die?" she shouted, her silver eyes burning with fury. No one spoke after that. The chamber filled with uneasy silence. The human sank back to the chair beside the bed, his hand trembling as he touched the princess's skin once more. The warmth returned, her body relaxed, her breathing deepened. It was undeniable. The bond between them was real. The healers recorded the readings again, their faces pale with disbelief. The Emperor turned away, his cloak sweeping across the floor. He walked to the far window, staring out at the vast alien city glowing in the night. His voice was low, meant only for himself. "What are you, human, gift or curse?" The stars outside gave no answer. Only cold silence. The human closed his eyes, trapped between fear and duty. He had never asked for this, never dreamed of it. But now the fate of an empire's heir rested in his hands. And though his heart ached with confusion, he knew one truth: he could not walk away. The chamber remained tense, nobles whispering in corners, guards shifting uneasily. But in the center of it all lay the alien princess, her hand in the human's, her life tied to his touch, her family forced to accept the impossible. And above them, the Emperor's demand echoed through their hearts. The truth must be found, no matter the cost. The princess awakens. The night stretched long inside the palace chamber. Guards stood at every corner, their armor shining under the glow of alien lights. The healers worked silently, scanning, recording, but their faces remained pale with disbelief. At the center of it all, the alien princess lay still, her hand resting in the human's. Her breathing was steady now, each rise of her chest stronger than before. The human sat motionless, afraid to move. He stared at her delicate face, at the faint glow of her silver skin. Every time his hand shifted, she stirred faintly, and so he kept still. His heart was heavy, He did not know why his touch gave her life, but he could not deny what everyone had seen. The queen never left her daughter's side. She watched the human with eyes full of both fear and gratitude. She wanted to thank him, yet pride held her tongue. Instead, she whispered softly to her daughter, "Stay with us, my child. Fight a little longer." Hours passed like days. The chamber tense with waiting. The emperor paced like a predator, his cloak sweeping the ground. His mind burned with questions, his anger boiling beneath his calm mask. He hated the thought that a human, of all beings, could succeed where his empire failed. Yet every time he looked at his daughter, he was forced to accept the truth. Then it happened. The princess's fingers twitched. Not just once, but twice, her eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved as though searching for words. The queen gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "She is waking," she whispered, her voice trembling with hope. The human leaned closer, his heart pounding, her eyes opened slowly, like the first light of dawn. They were pale at first, clouded with weakness, but then for a brief moment they focused, and the first thing she saw was the human. Her lips parted and a soft word slipped out. It was broken, fragile but clear enough. "You," the queen sobbed, falling to her knees beside the bed. "She speaks, she lives. By the stars she lives." The emperor rushed forward, his face unmasked for the first time. His fear, his love, his rage all breaking through. "My daughter," he said, his voice shaking. The princess turned her eyes toward him, but then back to the human. Her weak hand tightened around his finger, refusing to let go. The nobles gasped, their whispers filling the chamber again. "She looked at him first," one muttered. "She called to the human," another said. Their voice filled with disbelief. The healers stared in shock, their instruments proving what their eyes already knew. Her heart rate was rising, her body repairing itself. The queen clutched her daughter's other hand, her tears flowing freely. "My love, what do you feel?" she asked. The princess's voice was faint but clear. "Warmth, hope. Only when he is near." Her words fell like thunder in the silent hall. The emperor's eyes narrowed, his fists clenched. He wanted to deny it, to shout that it was impossible. But his daughter's words were truth. The bond between her and the human was undeniable, something far beyond science, beyond their understanding. The nobles broke into arguments, some voices sharp with anger. "This is dangerous. The human has bewitched her." "No, it is a miracle. He saved her when nothing else worked. The empire cannot allow such power in alien hands." Their voices rose higher, until the chamber shook with discord. The queen silenced them with a cry. "Will you argue while my daughter breathes again? Will you call her savior a curse when he gave her life?" Her voice echoed with a strength that silenced even the emperor. The nobles fell quiet, their faces grim, their thoughts divided. The princess stirred again. Her eyes finding the human once more, she whispered, weak but certain, "Do not leave me." The human's chest tightened. He nodded slowly. "I will stay," he said, though fear still gripped him. It was not duty that bound him now, but something deeper. The emperor turned, his voice low. "Then stay you shall, but remember, human, if this bond brings harm, the stars will not save you." His words were sharp, yet his eyes betrayed his fear. For he saw the truth. The life of his daughter now rested in the hands of one he could not control. The chamber fell into uneasy silence once more. The princess drifted into sleep again, but this time her face was peaceful. Her hand held firmly to the human's, refusing to let go even in dreams. The queen watched them both, her mind torn between trust and fear, and the emperor stared at the stars, whispering to himself, if humans carry such power, then the galaxy itself must beware. Secrets of humanity. The dawn rose over the alien capital, its skies glowing with twin suns. The palace stood tall against the light, but inside the royal chamber the air was still heavy. The alien princess slept, her breathing calm, her face less pale than before. Her hand remained wrapped around the human's, as if her life itself refused to let go. The healers gathered once more, their machines glowing, their eyes wide with disbelief. They scanned, measured, and tested again and again. Each time their results came the same. The human's touch carried something no alien body had ever shown. "Energy fields unknown," one muttered. "Resonance beyond our science," another whispered. No one dared to say the truth out loud, yet the truth filled every corner of the room. The queen stood behind them, her hands folded tight, Her voice was soft but firm. You see it, do you not? It is his presence that holds her life. The healers bowed their heads. Unable to argue, the Emperor entered, his heavy steps echoing like thunder. His face was carved in stone, but his eyes burned with silent fire. What have you found? He demanded. The chief healer spoke carefully, his voice trembling. Sire, the human carries resistance, a strength of body and spirit, something we cannot explain. The Emperor's voice was sharp. Do not give me riddles. Give me truth, the healer swallowed hard. By all measures, the human is healing her where our knowledge fails. The words struck the chamber like lightning. The nobles who had gathered gasped, their whispers sharp and fearful. So it is true. Humans hold secrets, one hissed. They hide power in their blood, another muttered. The Emperor raised his hand and silence fell once again. He turned to the human, his golden gaze piercing deep. What is your world hiding? He asked slowly. What strength lies in humanity that even our empire cannot touch? The human shook his head, fear in his voice. My people are not special. We only fight. We endure. We suffer more than we should. But his words did not calm the Emperor's suspicions. The Queen stepped closer, her voice softer. Perhaps that is the secret, my husband. Perhaps humans endure where others fall. Her eyes drifted to the princess, still clinging to the human's hand even in her dreams. They survive storms, wars, hunger, yet they rise again, she whispered. Maybe that endurance is what our daughter feels. The Emperor said nothing, but his silence carried weight. The nobles broke into quiet arguments once more. If humans carry such strength, then we must control them. No, we must ally with them. They may be the key to survival. Others spat with hatred. Or they will use this power to rule us. The chamber grew thick with suspicion. The human sat quietly, his eyes downcast. He had no answers. No way to explain the mystery of his touch. He only knew one thing. He wanted the princess to live. Nothing more, the Emperor finally spoke, his voice heavy and cold. From this day, humanity will be studied. Their bodies, their blood, their secrets. His words fell like chains, binding the human tighter to the Empire's will. The nobles nodded, some in agreement, some in fear, but none dared to oppose their ruler. The human's chest tightened. He wanted to protest, but the princess stirred in her sleep. Her hand gripped his tighter, and he fell silent. He could not abandon her, not while her fragile life depended on him. He looked at her face, and in that moment his fear turned into something stronger. A quiet resolve. The Queen leaned closer to him, her silver eyes filled with strange light. You are more than you believe, human, she whispered softly. You may be the key not only to her survival, but to all of us. The words sent a shiver down his spine, for they sounded less like hope and more like destiny. Outside the palace, the city stirred. Whispers spread like fire, carried by servants, guards and merchants. The human saved the princess, they said. His touch brought her back from death. Some spoke with awe, others with fear. And already the people began to wonder what this meant for the Empire. The Emperor stood tall, his cloak sweeping as he turned from the chamber. Guard him well, he ordered, for if he is our salvation, we cannot lose him, and if he is our curse, we cannot let him escape. The guards saluted, their eyes locked on the human like hunters waiting for the command to strike. The human bowed his head, feeling the heavy weight of chains unseen, yet he knew somewhere deep inside that this was only the beginning. The princess slept on, her dreams peaceful for the first time in days. Her lips curved faintly, as if she felt the bond even beyond the waking world, and the human sat beside her, caught between hope and dread, unaware that his simple touch had shaken the foundations of an empire, and that the secrets of humanity would soon be revealed to a galaxy unprepared. The royal dilemma, the palace council chamber filled with the sound of clashing voices. Nobles, generals, and advisors stood in heated debate, their eyes flashing with fear and pride. The news of the princess's healing had spread, and with it came doubt, anger, and a hunger for answers. At the center of the long crystal table sat the Emperor, silent but burning with fury inside. One noble shouted, "This cannot be allowed, sire. The human holds dangerous power. What if it is a weapon against us?" Another countered quickly. "No, he is a gift, a miracle. Without him, the princess would already be dead." The hall shook with arguments, voices rising like storms. Some demanded the human be executed before he became a threat. Others begged that he be honored as a savior. The Queen rose from her seat, her silver eyes sharp as blades. You argue like children while my daughter breathes because of him, she said, her voice steady. You would call her life a curse simply because it was given by human hands. Her words silenced the room for a moment. But whispers soon returned. The Emperor finally spoke, his voice cutting through the chaos. The truth is simple. My daughter's life is tied to this human. Without him she dies. With him she lives. His words carried weight, yet they did not calm the storm. The nobles exchanged fearful glances. The generals clenched their fists. No one wanted to admit it, but the fate of the empire now depended on a single human. In her chamber, the princess had awakened again, her eyes brighter now, her strength slowly returning. She refused to release the human's hand. Her voice weak but firm. Stay near me, she whispered. Your touch is my breath, my shield. The human nodded, though his heart trembled at the weight of her words. Outside the chamber, guards whispered among themselves. Why does she hold him so tightly? One asked. Perhaps she is bound to him now, another replied with unease. The rumor spread, twisting and growing by nightfall. The city itself whispered that the princess had chosen a human above her own kind. The emperor called for the council again. This time his face was harder, his voice like stone. The question is no longer what he has done, but what we shall do with him. The council fell silent, all eyes fixed on their ruler. One general bowed low. Use him, sire. Place him as guardian of the princess. Let his power serve the empire, another noble spat. No, he will twist her mind. Already she looks to him before her own blood. The queen spoke softly, yet her words struck deep. She looks to him because he gave her life, can you not see? Fate has bound them. The emperor's jaw tightened. He hated the thought of his daughter bound to a being outside their kind. But the truth was undeniable. She lived only because of the human. The dilemma grew heavier with every passing moment. If they raised the human as protector, the nobles would revolt, fearing the loss of their pride. If they cast him away, the princess would wither and die, and the people would see their rulers as cruel. The empire balanced on a knife's edge, caught between survival and pride. The human himself felt like a prisoner of destiny. He never asked for power, never wanted to stand in halls of kings and emperors, yet now every eye was on him. Every whisper carried his name. He wondered if he had been cursed by fate, or chosen for something greater. The princess, weak but wise, saw the storm around her. She looked at her father and mother, at the nobles, at the guards, and in her fragile voice she said, Do not fear him, he is not our curse. He is my strength. Her words filled the hall like a wave. Breaking the arguments for a moment, the emperor stood. His shadow long against the walls, he spoke slowly, each word like a blade cutting into the silence. We face a choice: to embrace this bond and risk our pride, or to deny it and risk our heir. His eyes swept across the council, burning into each noble. Make no mistake, whatever choice we make will shape the empire for centuries. The queen placed her hand gently over his, her voice softer. Perhaps the stars have sent us this path for a reason, she whispered. But the emperor did not answer. His mind torn, his heart heavy. His people demanded strength. His bloodline demanded survival, and in the middle stood a human, fragile yet unshakable. The council broke into whispers once more, some voices trembling with fear, others with hope. The human stood silent. The princess clutched his hand tighter. The night grew darker around the palace, and the empire waited for the choice that would decide its fate. The turning point. The empire stood on the edge of storm. Rumors spread faster than fire, from the palace to the farthest city. The princess lives because of the human, the people whispered. Some spoke with awe, others with fear, but none could ignore the truth. In the chamber, the princess sat upright for the first time in weeks. Her silver hair flowed around her shoulders. Her skin glowed faintly. She was weak but alive, her eyes brighter than the healers had believed possible, and still her hand never left the humans. Every moment they were apart. Her strength wavered every time they touched. Her life grew stronger. The emperor entered, his cloak heavy, his face unreadable. Behind him marched generals and nobles, their voices like thunder waiting to break. He stopped before his daughter's bed, his gaze moving from her face to the human beside her. The silence stretched, the weight of the entire empire pressing on that single moment. My daughter lives, he said at last, his voice carrying through the chamber. But at what cost? The nobles erupted, their voices sharp. He must be controlled, one shouted. "He must be destroyed," cried another. Others countered, "He is a savior. Without him, she would be gone." The hall shook with division, a kingdom tearing itself apart with words. The princess raised her voice, soft but firm. "Enough," she said, her eyes flashing. For the first time since her sickness began, her voice carried strength. She looked at her father, then at the council. "This human is no curse, he is no threat, he is my protector, and I will not let him be taken." The chamber froze. Every noble stunned. The emperor's golden eyes burned with conflict. He had always ruled with strength, never bending to fate, never bending to weakness. But here stood his daughter, alive because of the human, defying even him. Before he could answer, a guard stormed into the chamber. He fell to one knee, his face pale. "My emperor, an outbreak spreads in the lower city. People are falling, our medicine fails. Our healers cannot stop it." Gasps filled the room, the nobles muttered in fear. The disease that had nearly taken the princess was now threatening the empire itself. The queen's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide. "The sickness spreads," she whispered. Just as it began with her, the emperor's jaw tightened, his gaze shifting slowly to the human in that instant. Every eye in the chamber turned to him, the only one whose touch had healed where all else failed. The nobles erupted again. "Send him. Use him. Test him on the sick," some shouted in fear. "If he carries the cure, he carries power greater than the throne." The chamber shook with chaos, louder and louder until the emperor raised his hand. Silence fell at once, his gaze locked on the human, sharp and unyielding. "You will go to the city," the emperor declared. "You will touch the sick. You will prove before all that your kind holds this gift." The human's heart pounded. Fear filling his chest, he looked at the princess, her grip tightening around his hand. Her eyes pleaded silently, but she did not speak. He knew she feared losing him, feared the weight placed on him. The emperor's voice carried on. "If you heal them, the empire will bow to you as savior." His tone shifted, darker. "But if you fail, if your power is trickery, then you and all your people will pay." The words cut like a blade, leaving no escape. The human bowed his head, his voice quiet but steady. "I will go." The nobles gasped. The queen's eyes filled with fear. The princess shook her head weakly. But the human stood, resolve burning in his chest. He had not asked for this fate, yet now he could not turn away. The princess whispered, her voice breaking, "Come back to me." The human gave a faint smile. Though his eyes were heavy, "I will," he said. Though in his heart he knew the path ahead would test more than his touch. It would test his soul. The emperor raised his hand and the guard stepped forward. The council watched in silence, torn between hope and fear. The human was led from the chamber, the weight of an empire on his shoulders. And as the doors closed behind him, the princess's soft cry echoed through the hall. "Do not let him be lost." The queen turned to her husband. Her eyes fierce. "You gamble with fate," she said. "If he saves the people, they will love him more than they love us." The emperor's voice was cold. "Then we shall see if humanity is meant to rule beside us or to be broken by us." And so the empire stood at its turning point. One human walking toward the dying city. One princess clinging to hope. One emperor torn between fear and pride. And above them all the stars burned silently, as if waiting for the choice that would change the galaxy forever.